So this is such a great conference title, Unleashing Worker Co-ops for Success. And, there's so many components to success for a worker cooperative because they're complex organizations and they have many advantages for success, including having a democratic workplace where people have more control over their work and what they get paid and how they distribute profits if they're a for-profit share cooperative, and making collective decisions together, supporting each other emotionally. So there's lots of great things about the success and unleashing that for worker co-ops. And the one we're talking about today is money. So finances today. And this is for people, and I was looking over the list of people attending today. And I have to say, there's some people on the list that probably have more experience and skills and knowledge than I do. So we can draw on those people if we need to. If some of your burning questions are just too much for me and Danny, then we'll open it up to the group as a whole and we can tap into that experience. And that, my friends, is the power of cooperation. So that's a beautiful thing. So here's the basic agenda for our little workshop today. And Chalo's done a beautiful introduction. We can do very quick. I think we've done that basically in the chat. So I don't know if we need to go around and do that with everybody. I think we've got an idea. So thank you for putting your name and your co-op's name and maybe job position in the chat. And then we've got burning questions. So that's really what we want to focus on today. So this workshop is really for people who already do understand their financial statements for their co-op. They use their financial statements for decision making. They might calculate ratios, financial ratios, or use other benchmarks or KPIs. And we'll be talking about that. So right now, I want to just pass it over to Danny. So I'm going to stop sharing. And Danny, it's all yours.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, yeah, this is like a little story about how, I became so passionate about finances. And it just more than a presentation, I was thinking, I just wanted to show you where all this kicked off, which is basically here. This was the first cooperative I joined. And I'm going to explain more, but I just want to keep this in your visual. Can you see the picture? Okay. So this is where everything started for me. So I'm from Chile originally. I moved here to the US in 2012, and I was lucky to join the first cooperative in 2013. Um, I'm here. Well, now back then I was in South San Francisco, but I'm now in Holona territory in Oakland, also known as Oakland, California. Um, so back then, when I met all these amazing women and powerful women, I was hired by the incubator of this cleaning co-op, which is called Home Green Home in San Francisco. Basically not knowing much about, I was hired as a sales manager in operations, but not knowing much about worker-owned cooperatives. So few events happened that actually have to shift my role in the cooperative. But one was like when I joined, it was like the fourth year of the cooperative already. Um, After a year that I was there in this role, the general manager left, which this incubation model was with like the cooperative was paying for their admin staff, and we were providing the services through the nonprofit. Um, so that's how I joined. So the general manager left, and I was appointed by the rest of the members if I could become the general manager. And I did, but it was a big jump for me. I never had that position before to start. So I requested to have some mentoring with our accountant back then. Um, so that's what I did. She had several already education. She has been part of this nonprofit that launched all these cleaning cooperatives in 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 San Francisco, well, in different parts in the Bay Area, actually. And I know maybe some of you know the name, but that nonprofit was called Wages, and nowadays it's called Prospera, which has a different, totally different incubation model that back then. So I joined this cooperative. I mean, I accepted the role, but I had this mentor, which was Steph Goldberg back then, and that was actually amazing for me to thrive this moment. After that, and I'm gonna stop sharing. I think I left the picture in your heads, but and after that, we got separated from the nonprofit, which it was the fifth year, which was like the graduation year, and that was when I realized that the members didn't have much involvement in the admin. So at the end, I became a member, a worker-owned member as well of the cooperative because I felt that I needed to be also invested the same way that the rest of the members were invested and not becoming an employee of the member. So that's why I joined. It was in 2014. So that was the whole story. As you know, I didn't know much, but I was so impressed by the whole model of cooperative and also for being they're being so empowered because even though they were not so involved in the administration, maybe they were making the decision. It was not in the operations, I would say, but they were doing they were making the decisions. They were doing the admin, but they were not so involved in operations or the stuff. What was going on behind the cleaning services, like the back end support. Um, but then I think that it was a big step for everyone. Um, and I I say this like a moment that happened there, but during this like the first meetings that we started having, and I was actually providing these financial reports to everyone. Um, I said, "Damn, this is easy. Like everyone is agreeing, everyone is so, everyone is saying yeah to everything that consensus all the time." I was like, "Whoa, wow," you know. And then I started like I got it like a little suspicious. So I started like paying more attention to everyone. And when we were making decisions, they were like looking at each other and confirming the decision. Like, so I was like, so what's going on here, right? So I think after a year, we started like that. I started realizing about all this, situation and conversation after in the aisles and not in the in the members meeting. I started like get suspicion. I started like, okay, so let's figure it out. Do you really understand the reports, right? I started like opening questions to everyone, and that's why I understand that all this looks to each other to confirm their voting or making decisions, financial decisions, was more like they felt embarrassed not to know exactly, to feel informed, as informed as they did, as they should have been, right, to make these decisions. But they were so-called owners, so they had to, right. So that's what it all kicked in me. It was like this is a huge gap. One of the barriers that we go through is education, formal education, right? I've been there. I learned this through work experience. I didn't attend specific university. I was on the road, um, learning everything. So that is where all this I said, okay, so if we're really making an impact, I mean, and we're really, doing this for the good of people, the communities that already have so many barriers, right? I started realizing that I have this privilege, and I wanted to um, even being part of the community, I had the privilege of have some study, some formal education that I could use, right, to bring our members um, like I would say balance, like in the title it says like balance, because if you're not, if not everyone is understanding what's going on with the finances of the cooperative, it makes it a power and privilege decision, right? And a lot of people don't understand, and feel or embarrassed, or they're too shy to share that they're not understanding, or they, because they are supposed to understand. So I think that that's what I started like doing, and I did some also presentations in different conferences about like how do we talk about this big elephant in the room. Um, because sometimes you assume, oh, this person is not interested, this person is not, is not involved, it doesn't feel, it's not commitment in that person because it's not participating as they should. And sometimes that is behind that is all this stress and all the situation of not really understanding what's going on or not feeling. So I think that talking about the elephant of the room was like for me, what I started thinking or evolving in, okay, this is economic justice. It's not only being able to participate, creating all these cooperatives, immigrant cooperatives, and being able to participate and be visual in the economy as we should, uh, as the, everything that we bring to the economy in in the country. But um it's also about really taking care of this gap in education and starting to make it simple. So that's when I started like, this needs to be simplified, right? This is very fancy names, and there's like, but it's like probably this. Probably you always do a budget, and in your house, and it's in a piece of paper. So bringing in what we already know and we use, because we manage houses, we manage the economy of our homes and our kids, and or whatever we live. Maybe we live with more friends or with more family, and we have to get together and start a structure to make it work. So that's how I started, like bringing all this like bringing your stories, bringing your old knowledge and your old wisdom into the room, and learning, this is a budget, this is what I do regularly. When we talk about this, you know this cash flow is more like what I do. I write here what I have in the account, in the bank account. I know exactly where the money is coming in. And now this I owe, no, to someone, right? Or this, someone owes me. And it, start to, making those reports, like telling you the story of the cooperative, of what was going on with your cooperative, what you expected in the future to be, what where you want to go with your cooperative, right? So this is how I got very passionate about, how can how many of these women starting this cooperative, how many of these women were like, oh, I do that every time, I know exactly. Some were very fast with numbers. I was like, you think you don't know, but when I tell you, oh, you give me a number, and that you're getting in your head. So it's like you're really fast. And but they were saying, oh, I didn't finish school. And but you're really fast with numbers, so you have already, you're doing it, you do it, maybe you're doing it for so many years in your with your family, that you have your own structure and your own way of doing things. But this, what you're doing. This is the same thing that we do in our homes. We have to do it for the business, and the decisions now are collective. Maybe if you're holding all the burden in your house, now here you're sharing this with other people. So the, everyone, you're also, it's like a responsibility, but also a good for us that people are balanced in 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 financial literacy, or understanding learning how to read reports. So I think that that's what just I wanted to share. This has been my case. We one of the things that we've done in the Common cooperative consulting, which was like I'm more dedicated now in sharing, because of this experience that I have at Home Ring Home, was like I was going out there, having the opportunity to be in certain places where, you know, there didn't have interpretation in Spanish. So I was able to get all that information and bring it back home to our cooperative and just translate it and share it with the rest of the members. So that inspired me. Like this is what is, you know, empower these members to feel the ownership. I remember one saying, "Oh, I'm supposed to be the owner, but you know, I don't really know about finances." And that is true. That was so honest, right? I'm supposed to be the worker owner of this cooperative, and I really don't understand the reports when they're read. So I really don't understand what's going on. I know that we're having work. That's awesome, and I know that we're doing. You know, we have money to pay ourselves, but that's it. And but projecting, for example, what we would like to have, or if new members were needed, if we're going to grow the next year, that was not. She was feeling like very, you know, discouraged of making those decisions. So I think that um, as being able to experience and being so lucky to be in that place, I said, okay, so this is really what ownership means, right? You need to you hold and they were owners. I'm not saying they were not owners, but they felt very, you know, that they were doing it, but not walking straight, right? Like being pushed by someone or you know or sometimes just going with the flow. So I think that when I what also inclined me to start thinking about this consulting was and share this more widely was when I joined the US Federation, um and I joined the board member in 2017. That opened also my head, and I was like, "Oh, this is not happening only in my cooperative. This is it's happening everywhere in the cooperatives, and it's not only pertain to our immigrants cooperatives as well. There is obviously maybe some gap that comes from there, but it's also you know in cooperatives that people they feel that they are not like balanced in terms of financing or sorry financial education. So I think that also said, okay, so I started thinking, you know, this is something that is needed. Um, this is how you make informed decisions. So that's when I started thinking about the Colmenar Cooperative Consulting, and that became real in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic where we learned to adjust. And that was another struggle. See, it was like, oh, how do we adjust to this? And how do we adjust our budgets? And how, you know, and that was another oh my God, this is all these things that we need to learn and know how to, you know, when we call it in our homes to say, okay, so now we're eating rice and and only pasta and that's it. If we have this is the same thing where, you know, now we need to understand where the income is coming and if we need support, if we need to go for a grant, if we need to go for this government solution. So that was also like financial decisions for the business. How do we take care of ourselves, but also of the business that doesn't go down? So that was a lot of learning there as well. And so this started, it's been since 2020. I really focus on immigrant Latinx community, but BIPOC generally as well. Um, I do I do bring finances to more like very basic starting with the financial literacy like you being able to associate what you've learned at your own wisdom to what you know financial literacy means and and also bringing all this you know sharing what I've learned and what I've seen from the experience of other cooperatives that I've been able very honored to being able to see them thrive. I'm also working with one of the cooperatives till now that I started working in 2019. I'm their bookkeeper, but I cannot even be like more proud of how the way they manage their business and from the beginning. So they weren't afraid to be at this starting to say, you know, I don't know anything about finances, and that's what started from zero. And that was so awesome. If you see them, you can maybe see them somewhere. Sometimes they're called the Colores Collective, and they are this awesome group that they're invited to other places to tell the story about finances, and how they were. They've been a very profitable business right now, and they're thriving. But it's a lot of compromise. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of being honest to group and say, okay, so we need to balance this room or this table to make decisions. Um, Small businesses are, and yes, it's not. I'm reading some of the even they're saying it's not only cooperatives and small businesses. Is understand their financial position can make a difference in what happens at the end, or even if you're able to, if you can say, can this business grow, or can this business create more jobs for other people, or can this business need to stay in the community at a certain level, and it's not meant to do it other ways because it can actually bring the business down. There's a lot of those kind of decisions. I really also um, I really appreciate the mentorship that I have during my this period when I joined the when I became one worker owner um, of the first cooperative. It meant a lot to me. She also had been managing one of the other co-ops that were incubated. So she was very generous and share everything that she've learned. And I think that's the way that I tried um to do my work, like being able to share everything that I've been share also, and everything that I've been experiencing, um, to bring this power, to bring this stability to the to the cooperatives, and basically trying to bring to open, what it's already there. Sorry, it's already there, and it just, you need to embrace it and say, okay, this is, yeah, I know this, and and I can do this. Um, because it's a lot about being able to do it and just, throw yourself to it, but it's a lot of responsibility. So I understand that you need to be prepared and have some tools, and financial tools are really important to do that. I really appreciate that you brought me here and that I'm part of this. I'm very, I think I love the Canadian version of working cooperatives. Thank you, Hazel, also for always being, bringing the US also uh, to be, to keep our borders so close. Um, so thank you. If you have any questions, I really appreciate being here. And that's the story.
That's the story. Wonderful. Thank you, Danny. That was really awesome. And I love how you kind of emphasize just kind of making something that can feel scary and probably by design is confusing, and balance sheets and income statements, and make it uh, a little more, if not a lot more, understandable. So that's awesome. And seeing your groups um, progress. We've got one burning question here for our esteemed comrades and colleagues. Waiting for those burning questions, folks. Um, Evan from Sun Certified. Maybe this is for both speakers. Maybe Danny or Russ, you can choose which one goes first. But Evan asks, it's not an issue just in the co-op world. Many small businesses don't keep proper financial records or understanding their financial position. It's kind of a big issue with co-op succession and getting reliable financial statements from the owner so that we can conduct proper due diligence on the business. Great question.
I guess it was more of a comment, but I suppose there is a question there in that, if we are talking about co-op successions, which I think is going to be a big thing coming up, or that at least, the CWCF hopes, especially with the changes in the tax law. What kind of information do we need to be looking at to make a proper call on whether we're taking over a going concern or whether it's lipstick on a pig that we need to avoid?
I mean, I can start. I just want to thank Danny for that presentation because honestly, if the people on this webinar aren't excited about financial reports now, something's wrong. Because what a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. I think the relating it back to people's personal lives and their household, and managing their own budgets, it's really not that hard. And I know people get intimidated, but it's something that's so essential. And I'm so glad, Danny, that you're out there helping lots of people, especially in worker co-ops and other cooperatives and community organizations do that. It's just so important. So back to the co-op conversion or succession piece, I think, Evan, you really put your finger on it with the going concern. It's hard enough doing a conversion to say an employee-owned cooperative from a private business, getting the collaboration from the retiring owner or the owner that's leaving for whatever reason, valuing the business, trying to raise the capital, making sure the financial statements are accurate, like doing all those things is hard enough. But if it's not a going concern, then you're also going to face the situation of a turnaround business. And turnaround businesses, that's a whole specialty in itself and very challenging. Like many turnarounds aren't successful. So you can try and turn around a business, but it usually takes significant changes, maybe in human resources, a new business plan and marketing strategy, an injection of capital. So I think for worker co-ops or employee co-ops that are looking to succeed and take over a business, you want to try and, number one, make sure it is a going concern. And then number two, you have to have the collaboration or cooperation of the retiring owner, because you have to have the trust to share all that information. You can sign non-disclosure agreements and things like that, but in the end, there's a lot of information that retiring owner's got in their head that's never been written down or maybe even discussed with anybody. So there's a lot to share with the new people that are taking it over. And then the only other thing that I want to mention, and there's lots of people on this call that have lots of experience with co-op conversions, so maybe they want to add something. But the last thing I want to add is, make sure the employees want to take the business over, because they don't always want to. They don't necessarily want to be worker owners. And you really have to check that out, because I've been in situations where it seemed like, well, this could be a great takeover by worker owners. But if the employees don't want to do it, it's not going to happen. So that motivation's got to be there. So I don't know, Danny, if you want to add something, then, and maybe other people do too. I'll leave that up to our great facilitator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to add, or maybe I would say, I think you say it maybe in different words. One thing, the last thing that you said, that you mentioned, is really, really so important when we get to a group that is that it's trying to convert, or there's a chance to do that because the owner it's retiring, or for any reason the owner is willing to sell the business to the workers. It's so important that there's a really strong commitment to that from the former employees, but also understanding as well what is a worker cooperative, what is going to be now my what is going to change for me in terms of the new role that I have, and I think that first part will sometimes lead into this first worker owners group, and not everyone may be joining the first group, and or having a committee that leads for the rest of the members, which it will turn into this structure as well. But I think how the group that work together trust each other, it's very important in this in actually buying a business together. It's like signing a contract. We're getting married, and if you know each other well, it doesn't mean it's going to work, but it's good. It's a good start. Um, and just adding, you need to understand exactly what that um that owner means to the business. As Russ was saying, there's so many things that are not even written down in everywhere, anywhere. So you need to understand what is this person is the person that brings the clients in. It has the customer service. People go there because they enjoy chatting with the owner. They enjoy that's a thing. And he will take that with him when he leaves, or with her when she leaves. So or they, it's like something that you need to consider. What does it mean, this owner, for the business? There are owners that they just go there, check the finances, the day-to-day operations, and they just leave, and they're not involved in the business. But there are owners that are really involved in the business, are really involved with the community, and the owner can help that this continue thriving. And then, of course, always check in, even though you work there and you see that the business is thriving. Just check that everything is in it's right and it's updated, like all the finances are updated, and check it with an accountant and a specialist, um, to see that everything is in place, of course. So just maybe a summary of what you said, Russ, but that's it.
Wonderful. We have a question from Jillian on the mic.
Oh, hi. And have we moved off of, I don't think I'm in that transitioning from, transit. I'm coming from Transform Practice. Thank you, Danny and Russ, who our co-op members know well, because we launched through the support of the Canadian Work Co-op Federation. And so I made some notes. I did kind of add in a question. I'm very curious because I have a background in popular education too, and I saw on your website about popular education, and I think I'm curious then, like, what approaches do you use in helping us bring our members like into a place where they are engaged and they can relate it to their own personal experience with finance, as you mentioned, like just more detail of that. I think really my question to ask you to just expand around more is, I'll just locate myself, like in our team, that there's 5 of us, there's 2 of us, I would say, who are like, we're on the bridge, right, between the professional financial management people and then the rest of our team members. And I find this position very challenging because on the one hand, and because of the limited time, it's basically volunteer time for like either side, about like ensuring that we can trying to work towards more collective engagement around the financial reports that we do have and whatnot, and trying to build so Kisa and my capacity around doing that with our colleagues, and then also building our capacity around like the more business side of this, right? And so I don't know, is that enough of a putting out a problem that you could share some of your wisdom, Danny and or Russ or anybody? And we are a small co-op, right? Like nobody's making a full-time living on this right now. And so we still call ourselves emerging, but we are incorporated as a nonprofit.
Got it. I could start. Um, yeah, when we talk about popular education, is that really thinking that we all bring, our share. We all have different experiences that we've been collecting through time, through your life, and that can always be used as a resource for other people, and the same for you with other people. So I think that, I don't know the way that you're doing, but I think that getting people more involved is only if only these 2 person are the person that are involved in the finances. Maybe there's some things. I don't know if you have rotation of roles in your cooperative. I think that's very useful. Just, being like when you have to do certain tasks, there's more opening, to your understanding of the things, the financial stuff, and having, mentor days, like, but people need to be doing, like, sometimes do some tasks, and to feel this urgency that finances have, like, you need to be on top of things, and sometimes, and some things are not so urgent, so they can be built. Maybe if you start early, creating your budget, for example, I think that's a very good way of understanding a lot of the financial of the business. Is if you start with with time, with meetings, and saying, okay, let's figure out what do we need, right? What do we want to do next year? What is the strategy for us? If you're a small co-op, like, bringing this in this moment, like having been able to celebrate what you're doing, but also put out there, like, in the table, this is our struggle. So this is what it's at, and how can we make it better? And I think that sharing some of the responsibilities of your role, in a in a mentoring way, I think it's good for other members to start, really feeling that, oh, okay, so this is, because sometimes we are people that, and I count myself in, that okay, so I can do this faster, so I just do it. Sometimes it will take more time, and just, bring that space for everyone, and to, we need to have this time. We need to have this time together, because I need support, and I need for you to be more involved in the finances. And I think that's something that people, we do it because we can do it faster, or the group also relies a lot in that person. But then when something happens, they're like, oh, you are in charge, you did it. At the end, I don't understand the report, so whatever. Right? So that is not a way to admin your business. You want to be involved, you want to be committed, and you want to be responsible for the decision of the outcomes of these decisions. So I think that I would say on my side.
Yeah,
Thank you. And Russ, if you have a comment, I feel that squeeze, and it's like the time spent doing that is the time also being oblivious to the things that I feel like that are being neglected, that are more professional side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think people feel kind of intimidated about financial statements and numbers and spreadsheets. And I mean, I love spreadsheets myself, and I know there's some people on this call that do, but not everybody does. So I think what you need to do is get people engaged by telling a story. So you tell a story about the financial statements, you get the story from the financial statements and the knowledge that you have about your co-op enterprise, about the business sector that you're in, about the overall economy, what's happening with the interest rates, how does that impact our cooperative? So you're basically taking your financial statements. Let's assume that they're accurate and timely. So you're getting your financial statements from some kind of computer program, and you're getting them, let's say, 2 weeks after the month end, and you're comparing your actual results with your budget for that period. You're comparing your actual results with the year to date from the previous year, and maybe other historical information. Most businesses are seasonal. So that's all part of the storytelling. And I think what Danny was saying is really important around the budgeting. Like, every co-op needs to do a budget, and people that are responsible for different budget lines, whether it's revenue and sales or the cost of goods sold or different expenses, they need to be directly involved and actively involved in creating the budget, especially for their area or their department, so that they can then be, held accountable by the group and by themselves. And part of the point of doing a budget is you're charting out your pathway, right? Your map into the future. And you can start by using historical numbers, but you need to really think about, where's this business going? What are our objectives? What's our marketing strategy? What's our competition? Like there's all kinds of things. And so in the end, it's not really just about the numbers. Like that's the funny thing to me. It's really about the people. Like the financial part of the co-op always goes back to the people and the social aspects of how we're supporting each other and how we're sharing knowledge and information, what kind of training we're getting. So I'm just going to briefly share a document that I put together for this workshop, just to show you like some benchmarks and some financial ratios that you can use. And then I'm going to pass it on because we've got more questions, but I'd like to just share this. So I'm going to do that. I'll just make it maybe a little bigger. I don't know. Maybe everyone can see this already, so maybe it's okay. So you can see this is an actual worker co-op, and you see these different tabs down at the bottom of the spreadsheet. There's the summary. There's the income statement. Look at all those nice colors. I like to use colors because it highlights different things. So the green colors are, oh, that's good. And the yellow is kind of, caution, warning. And then here's the balance sheet. So the current assets, liabilities, and equity. And the summary is what I want to really focus on. So all this information comes from the income statement and the balance sheet. And there's different ratios. So you can see there's an actual comparison to the budget, and this is as a percentage of sales. So these are really common benchmarks that people use in different industries and different businesses, using different categories of accounts on the income statement right here as a percentage of sales. Really useful. And when you're budgeting, like you can see here, this co-op budgeted for 34% gross margin, and their actual gross margin is higher. So that's worth celebrating. It's like 1.4% higher. That's great. So that little F there, that's a favorable variance. And here is this graph for the financial dashboard numbers here from the percentage of sales. And that's what that looks like. And then there's some financial ratios. I know that I'm pretty sure the CWCF is sending out this spreadsheet to the participants in this workshop. And they're also sending out an article. I'll stop sharing this